Today is October 7th, 2011. I'm Rita Albers at the Warhawk Air Museum in Nampa, Idaho. I will be interviewing Chester Walborn for our Veterans History Project in partnership with the Library of Congress. Our camera operator today is Allie Hill. We have a guest sitting in. His name is Larry Gacco, and I just want to wish you and say welcome.
Thank you so much. And all of my friends call me Soapy.
So from now on, it's Soapy. Would you please state your full name, address, birth date, branch of military, and years served?
My full name is Chester Alden Walborn. I was born on 8th of September of 1932. I came in the Air Force on 4th of March of 51, and I am the luckiest human being that you've ever had in here, I will promise you. I was in the Air Force, and I flew fighters for my service.
Okay.
Yeah, I live at 570 East 13th North down in Mountain Home.
Okay, thank you. Soapy, why don't we start the program off today and let us know a little bit about your history when you were a child, your place of birth, and your siblings, parents?
I was born in the hill country of Kentucky, and specifically my birth certificate says Catherine, but really it was Decatur. Decatur had about a 20-person school, which was also the church. And they had a store that probably had 25 different products in it. That was also the post office. I'm a hunter from when I came out of the birth canal. I had a single-shot .22 rifle that I was allowed to carry in the hill country, Kentucky. When I was 5, I was allowed to leave the house with 6 .22 shells in my pocket. I wasn't allowed to put one in the rifle till I had my target. And when I chambered a cartridge, if the target moved, I had to unchamber it. I didn't have to take it out, but I had to open the bolt. And many, many times I would come back with 6 squirrels or 6 rabbits or a combination of the 6 plus quail and stuff like that. It was I didn't have anybody to play with, though. I didn't have any brothers, didn't have any sisters. And the reason I'm so dumb about women is that I don't have any sisters and I don't have any daughters. So I just bounced around, but I quite honestly consider myself the luckiest human being on the face of the earth. I really do.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school all over creation. I went through the first 3 grades at a little church school that had about 14 kids in it at Decatur, Kentucky. The school teacher got paid by how big the school was. And he got paid something like this. These aren't the exact figures, but they're probably pretty close. He got $10 a month to teach, and he got a quarter a month per student that we had in the class. Well, his name was Wheeler Wade, and he didn't have a lot of kids in the class. So we got the sheriff, and they went up this hillbilly ridge behind the school, and they told all of these hillbillies up there that, look, this is it. Your kids are coming to school, and there's no arguing from it. And one of them told him, said, Wheeler, if you make our kids come to school, we'll kill you. And on the first day of the 4th grade, the school had started, and about 30 minutes after it had begun in the morning, the back door of the church opened, and one of the Passmores is standing there with a single-shot .22 in his arms, and he shot Wheeler Wade right between the eyes and killed him deader than a doornail. And that was the last day of school that year, and that was somewhere around the middle of July. But that ended the school year. Well, I didn't have any parents there. My mom lived up in Illinois, and I lived with my grandparents. Mom was 13 when I was born. And I went home, and my grandma had a math book, and she had an English book, and we had a book called Cooning with Cooners, which was about coon hunting. And my education from books was really from those three primarily. And I was adopted on the 4th of March of 42, and I got reprieved. I got to spend the first night that I'd ever spent in a room that had water in it and heat. And but it was the first time that I'd ever really lived a civilized day of my life. And I told Dad that even though I'd missed 6 months of the 4th grade, that he wanted me to finish the 3rd. And I said, no, Dad, I'm smart and I'll work really hard and I can do it. And he finally let me do, and I never got a B through grade school or high school, and I've got 3 master's degrees, and I never got a B in any of those things either. But like I say, I consider myself the luckiest human in the world.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school I graduated from Sioux Falls, Washington High School. I went to high school 2 years in Hawaii, once at Pearl Harbor High and the other one at Roosevelt. So at the end of my 2nd year, which I've got 2 years left, my dad is going to come home from Hawaii to Montgomery, Alabama in the middle of football season. And the kids over there are going to hate me for leaving, and the kids at Montgomery are going to hate me for pushing myself into a program that I didn't belong in, and I didn't want to do that. So I had saved quite a lot of money caddying, and I came back on a boat by myself from Hawaii to San Francisco, and I jumped on a Goonie Bird, a very, very slow 145 mile an hour 2-propeller airliner, and I flew to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I finished high school at Sioux Falls.
And how old were you then?
I'm just turned 16.
Okay, that's overwhelming. After schooling, what did you do after you got out of high school?
It's kind of funny. I had a barbershop quartet, and I got rich during junior college because we were really good, and we worked every Friday and Saturday. And we never asked for more than $20 a piece for us, plus dinner and drinks for us and a date. See, a total of $80, and we would come out and do 3 shows a night. And they're talking, and $40 a week for a 16-year-old kid in college, that's a fortune. Nobody can spend that much money. But they're talking, and if we're in college, we have exclusions from the draft. So you can't be drafted if you're in college and in good standing. And you had to carry 12 hours of credit with C or better in it. And but they're talking about ending the college deferral. They never did, but they got our attention, and we were all concerned with it. We also never sang except on Friday and Saturday, but this night, for reasons known only to God, because I don't remember, and I never have remembered signing up, contracting for us to go down there, because it was at the toughest, raunchiest nightclub in East St. Louis. And there's a beautiful, big crowd, really happy and everything else. And I said, what's the occasion? And they said, we're a reserve unit from the Air Force, and we're called active duty tonight. And you're kind of singing us our goodbye. And they're talking about ending college deferrals. And I said, are you guys manned 100%? And they said, God, no, we're manned about 30. And I said, have you got room for a quartet? So we signed up at midnight, and we're called to active duty at 8 the next morning. And 30 years later, I stepped off the boat. But it was just a wonderful experience. Matter of fact, we got so lucky. The quartet was the Air Force Quartet, straight from Scott. We hope we'll never be forgot, so Hello, to everyone. That was our intro. And we won the Worldwide Barbershop Quartet Contest after we'd been on active duty 2 months. See, everything that could possibly happen, that's just unreasonably lucky, has happened to me in my life.
So you decided that the Air Force was your life, and you're going to make the most of it?
Well, I can't imagine us being given the opportunity to do something like that. Because, see, we went from 4 little civilian kids. We're called the 14s. And here's our intro. Hello, 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 hello. Hello to everyone, to everyone. Hello to everybody. Hello to everyone. We're here to sing you. We're here to bring you joy and lots of fun. What a time we'll have. We all are barber shoppers. We wear the Air Force blue. We're the Air Force Quartet straight from Scott. We hope we'll never be forgot. So Hello to everyone. And with a last note, our tenor, who was magnificent, he went right through the roof with a note that was so high that it blew a hole in the ceiling. But everything that could happen. See, here we are. We're brand newly on active duty. Nobody knows us. We're 4 little teenage punks. And somebody had told the wing commander's wife that we're pretty good. And she says, well, my birthday is Tuesday. Why don't you invite them to my birthday? See if they'll sing something. So we did. And nobody knows us. We don't have uniforms, you know. We're very, very low class as far as money-wise and the way we dressed. And anyway, we went to her birthday party, and we sang a couple of songs, and her favorite was Sweet 16, which is not a barbershop song at all, but our lead did it as a solo, and he just blew the doors off. And Mrs. Party took the 4 of us over to Wolf Brothers in St. Louis the Monday after we did this. And she bought each of us 2 pair, Wolf Brothers, the best men's store in town. She bought us each 2 pairs of pants, 2 jackets, 2 shirts, 2 ties, 2 pair of socks, and 2 pair of shoes. And we went from rags to riches. And we went on 5 different national primetime shows. And Roberta Quinlan was probably the greatest single entertainer of 1951. And she was a gorgeous blonde. So was Dagmar. And there was 3 others that had us back there. And everything we did just turned to gold. And we got invited to other things from it. But if you can be lucky in life, take my picture. Because that was just really what happened to us.
So how long did you boys sing together?
We sang together for a year and a half in college before we were on active duty. We came on active duty in January. We won the Worldwide Barbershop Quartet Contest in March. You can't even get registered in 2 months for contests like that. But see, we have gone from poor, little, scruffy looking college kids that are teenagers that are on our own to we're the Air Force Quartet straight from Scott. Uniforms were pressed. We got 2 pair of pants, 2 jackets, and everything else. And everybody that had something that was gold-plated invited us on. And everything that we got invited to do just turned out well. It really is pretty much of a miracle. I was with them for 2.5 months, and I got an opportunity, an offer to go to Keesler to play. I was a good jock, baseball and football both. And I went down there and was the All Air Force safety man and punter and kick returner when Keesler won the Air Force football championship. And we had barely gotten a reward from there. Then if you guys really want to go to pilot training, sign up. So I signed up. The rest of them didn't want anything to do with that. But I got to go down to cadets, and normally when you think of cadet, you think of going to the Air Force Academy for 4 years. I went down there for 5 months, was first in my class. See, I was number one graduate, and 5 months after we started, or 5.5 months, I was a second lieutenant. And I'm 19 years old. And I got my commission, but there's two kinds of commissions in the military. You can have a regular commission or a reserve commission. You cannot hold a regular commission until you're 21. I'm 19. So I held a reserve commission, even though I was first in my class. I was the only guy that was not legally allowed to have a regular commission. And so I served for 1.5 years. I was a first lieutenant before I got my regular commission. But it was just a miracle, the whole thing.
You made first lieutenant. From there, where did you go?
Well, the way that I got to first lieutenant, I came in January of '51 as a GI. And I got my commission on the 13th of March of '53. And I'm not 21. I had started my cadet thing when I was 19. And I was first in my class, and I've always been incredibly lucky. And after I came in '51, at the end of about 6 months, I had been promoted 4 times. And normally the 4th time that you're promoted takes 8 years. I was very lucky. And I went to cadets. I got commissioned the 13th of March of '53. I was first in my class. I'm too young to hold a regular commission, but I was assigned as an instructor in the bombing school down at Ellington, Houston, Texas. 20-year-old kid. And it was just, I'd never had that latitude. I'd never been that rich. Lord, I was making $200 a month. And you couldn't possibly spend $200 a month living in Houston, Texas. And after I'd been down there a little bit, I was an instructor, and I kept checking the personnel people and what they had for great assignments for young rated officers. And I checked them every week. And what I really want is I want to go to a combat squadron. And there's no war on, see this, 53. But I want to go to a combat squadron, B-26 preferably, in Europe. And finally, they came in. And there's an assignment to the 1st TAC Recon Squadron at Spangdahlem, Germany, and I took it. And it really accelerated everything that could possibly go right in my life. And everything that happened after that, from combat and everything else, just turned to gold.
So we're going to look at some pictures here, if you want to help explain some of them. How long was your training for this job?
For which job?
In Germany.
None. I was already rated. I didn't get to go to school to learn to fly the B-26 or the B-57, and I just went over there and said, "Here I am, guys." They said, "Good. Here's where you are on the flying schedule.
Let's see the one plane that you were showing us. There we go.
Well, this is the old one. This is what I flew most of the time and got most of the credit for in Vietnam. It's a little single engine, single seat, very, very low speed airplane that flew over the ground and said, oh, there's VC there and there's VC here. And I would get a hold of the fighters and get them down there and kill VC. And I was very good at it.
That was the bird dog.
That was a bird dog. But it was a very slow airplane, and people that flew bird dogs probably had a higher incidence of being shot than anybody because it went so darn low and it went so darn slow.
And how long did you do that?
I flew these for a year. I flew the F4 out of Cam Bay for a year before that.
Okay.
The only way in those days that you could see, I had a follow-on assignment to the Pentagon. I'm divorced. I'm a major. And the last thing in the world I want to be is a divorced major in Washington, D.C. It'd been, for promotions, it'd probably have been the best thing I could have done. But for my own personal happiness and stuff like that, I couldn't imagine anything worse than that. And the only way I could break the assignment to Air Force plans in the Pentagon was a consecutive combat tour. So I went from flying F4s out of Cam Bay for a year down to, I actually owned everything below the lower fork of the Mekong.
Could you show us with the map, please?
The Mekong is right here. There's the main Mekong. Here's the lower fork. I owned everything on this side of the South Fork of the Mekong, and it was just a wonderful thing. I was responsible if the bad guys came down there and they were going to kill the Vietnamese infantry or the Vietnamese people. I could get people in with bombs and bullets and could really ruin their day, and I did for a year.
When you went to Germany, what was your job?
Well, I went to an RB-26 outfit, which was photo reconnaissance. The B-26 had two propellers, R-2800 engines. It was a very, very fast airplane, and quite honestly, it was probably the best tactical reconnaissance airplane for mapping that we ever had. It was slow, didn't break, and my squadron had 38 of them. And we had a zillion lieutenants in the squadron. And we were always deployed mapping the Mideast. We mapped the whole area over there. Well, I wasn't married. Most of the people were. Most of the people didn't want to go and live out of a tent and fly B-26s and Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iraq or Iran or wherever. I did. I thought it was great. It was something different every day. And so I was gone of the 3 years that I was over there on major mapping projects that really came out well. I came from B-26s and I got upgraded into fighters. From there, I came back to Perrin and flying Sabres, and I went from Perrin, which is north of Dallas, about 90 miles, flying Sabres. I was assigned to Oscoda, Michigan, which is up on the western shore of Lake Huron, and we had F-89s and F-101s, and I got in on the ground floor of that, and there was all the flying that I possibly wanted to do. Test flying, instructor piloting, and that. And I flew probably 3 times as much as the next closest guy in the squadron. But on a weekend when everybody would be off, I would probably fly 6 test stops. And if there was somebody that needed a check flight or something like that that came down from Air Defense Command, I would give them the check flight and would work it in there. It was an incredible thing. I got to fly so much. I had a big reputation in the F-101, and I won the worldwide gunnery meet in 1961. And when I've got the gunnery meet trophy in my arms, I was asked by Vermont Garrison, who was my first hero out of the hill country of Kentucky. Vermont Garrison was the only person, to my knowledge, who has ever been a double ace in propellers and in jets. And he is from about 12 miles from where I'm from, in the hill country of Kentucky. He's from Mount Victory, and I'm from Decatur. And I never met him. But I'd always just kind of worshipped him. I'm so proud that he'd done that. Here I've got the Hughes Trophy in my arms, and he says, "So Pete, we're going to start a Top Gun school here at Tyndall, and I want you to be the first chief of weapons training for it." God, what a great job for a captain. And it was the only place that I was ever assigned for 3 years. I was there for 3 years and a half. All the flying I could possibly want, all the recognition I could possibly want. And it was just a blessing. And but everything that has happened to me, whether it was things that I had tried to bring about or things that had just happened, I was just blessed with
And this is a
everything.
picture here of your Top Gun school.
Yeah, this is a picture of the.
And you're at the top,
Yeah.
fourth from the
peop-
left.
And we had 3 different airplanes that were in the school, 101s, 102s, and 106s. I was flying 101s. But it was just a remarkable thing. There were a lot of test hops to be flown down at Tyndall in the 102 and the 106. Nobody wanted to fly them, not on weekends. I'll do it during the week, but gosh, not Saturday or Sunday. And I said, hey, I'd really like to do that. So I got checked out in the 2 airplanes, and I was just always busy. But there's never really much that I've ever done with my life that did not involve duty that I was very proud of or that I really sought.
After this, where did you go?
You know, my mind is just about a blank right now. From there, I went to Vietnam. And to get to Vietnam, I had to go and get checked out in how how the system of inserting air power in a hostile theater, how it really worked, because I had never done anything like that. And so I checked out in the 01, and I checked out in the F4, you know, because I flew a year flying the F4 in Vietnam. And if I wanted to stay over there for a second year, I had to find something I wanted to do. And God, I really wanted to fly the 01. And I owned the bottom sixth of the country, which is, like I think I showed you, that I owned everything below this area right out here. And I spent a very nice 2-year period over there. When I'd finished the first, I'm going to go back to the Pentagon, and I don't want to go to the Pentagon. And the only way to avoid it without ruining my career, they say to abort the assignment without prejudice, was a consecutive combat tour. And that was the best tour I could possibly have. I represented the United States Air Force in combat air power going in to General Nguyen Van Minh, who was a brigadier and a very aggressive man, a wonderful man. And I went down, and he had gotten to the point that he didn't have much of a reputation, because we couldn't, if he were to go out there with a couple of battalions and really step in the mud with the Vietnamese or the Viet Cong, the guy that was in my position before me would not get air power for him. And the reason that he wouldn't do that, because if he messes up and puts a bomb on friendly troops, he'll be in jail till now. And I watched that and had it explained to me and what was going on. And I went down and I went to him and went over to his home, because I lived about a block from it. I lived inside the compound and he lived just on the outside of it. And I said, "Sir, I can never make you a victory, but I will guarantee you that you will never be hurt. You'll never be beaten, as long as I'm the ALO of the 21st Vietnamese Infantry Division." And he never was. He'd go out there and find Viet Cong on the ground. I would be on him like a dog on a cat. And we always won. We always knew we were going to win. We always did. But I said, "I can't make you a victory, but I'll sure guarantee you'll never get hurt." And it was just a blessing.
How long were you with him?
I was with him a year, a little bit more, 13 months. I'm ready to go home, and I'm got my bags packed practically, and Tet comes up. And when Tet hit, the Viet Cong activity rate went up about 300% instantly. And you can handle 5 or 10%, but not 300. And I was supposed to go home about the 5th of January, which I liked, because I'd get to be on guard over there over the holidays for one more year. But when I was getting ready to go home, the mud really hit the fan. And we've got so many more people than we'd ever seen down there that was just unreal. And I didn't get out till the 8th of March. And I was flying 5, 6, 7 times a day. And but we broke their back totally. And it was downhill after that.
Now, when you say downhill, what do you mean?
I mean, that was the worst part of the war. The Viet Cong activity rate was much higher than it ever been anywhere else. And when we broke their back, their activity rate just went to 0.
Wow.
And it was almost like being on a beach in California. Not quite, but...
So, with the actually the bad guys being in control, what did you do? What did you do after that?
I came home, and because I had flown a second combat tour back to back, I didn't have to go to Washington. I got to pick my assignment to Germany, and I had the best job of any Air Force job in Germany. I was the director of operational requirements and development plans, was the name of the job, but what that entailed is I ran all of the manufacturing programs, especially all the developing programs that the Air Force had that we were pushing back in the States to beef up stuff in Germany. And it was just a wonderful job. A lot of people wouldn't want it because, I don't know, why should I have to decide that? God, I'm only a major, lieutenant colonel. I thought, hey, the answer is 6, and we should paint them brown, and let's get after it. But it was a thing that just built my reputation over there, and a lot of people, like I said, wouldn't have wanted it. But there's a picture in here someplace of the general officer that,
Yeah, that's one.
That's the commander-in-chief. He was a 4-star.
What was his name?
Mo Preston. And he was really good to me. He wasn't there very long. And you would think you would have never have thought that he would have taken this young kid that's just got into the theater and give me all of this responsibility and then leave. But he did. And I had the people that replaced him were George Brown, who became the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. He became Think You Safe, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he died after he'd been chairman for about 6 months. And Davy Jones replaced him. And Davy Jones, when I got to Germany, was my brigadier. He made his second star. And later on, he was Think You Safe, the 4-star. Later on, he was Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Chairman of the JCS. I got to work just hand in hand with those guys.
Jeepers. You know, we kind of bypass this when you're in Vietnam receiving the award. Could you explain a little bit about that, and then we'll show it?
Well, there were not this right here is General Nguyen Van Minh. He was a brigadier when I got there. He was a 3-star when I left, and he was a 3-star for about a week after I left, and he was killed in our first incursion into Cambodia. Remember that? We had a whole bunch of helicopters. They shot just the dickens out of them, the Viet Cong did, because we're away from ground support. We're flying over and into their land. And the toughest spot for us to attack that I saw flying F-4s was Chapon, Laos, because it was a terrible, terrible, heavily defended place, and it was the focal point for resupply for all of the communist military operations that were going on in Laos and Cambodia. And but like I say, I'm the world's luckiest human, and I recognize that.
Could you show us on there where they were?
Where Chapon was?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it might not show on there, I don't know.
Chapon, Laos is right here. And it's spelled Tschepone. And I was down in this thing after. See, I had flown the mission against Chapon, Laos when I was here at Cam Bay. But, you know, it was a long way down here to the bottom of the delta from Cam. Chapon was not nearly that far. And you take off and you make a climb and you get up to 30,000 feet and you get over in the target area, identify it, drop down, drop your bombs and go. And if it was really, really heavily defended, you made one pass. And down in the bottom of the delta, if you had 6 bombs and a gun, you made 6 bomb passes and 2 or 3 or 4 gun passes till you were out of fuel. And the higher their voices got, the more passes you made, because if they were really concerned with it, they got us concerned with it really very quickly too. But I had 2 wonderful combat tours back to back, and as a reward from it, I got to go from there to Germany as a director of operational requirements and development plans. I was responsible for all of the R&D programs that we had that were prioritizing them. You know, this is the most important, this. I was the guy that got to prioritize them. And I defended them in Europe with a 4-star over there. And a lot of times he'd say, Soapy, I want you to go back to the Pentagon and get all those 4 stars together and tell them what we need and why. And I got to do that.
And after that?
Oh, me. I came back from there to Montgomery, Alabama. I was chief of the employment department of the War College. Got to be the best colonel's job in the Air Force. the chief of the employment department. How do we use all of these weapons that we've got in the Air Force to provide for our interest? And I was there for a year, and I never thought anything could beat that. And General Brown called me up one day. He was the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and he says, "Soapy, I'm really in trouble out at Mountain Home." I said, "Where?" And he said, "Mountain Home." And have you ever heard of it? I said, "Oh yeah, I put on air shows there a couple of times, but long, long ago. What in the world do we have there?" And he said, "We've got F-111Fs, and it's not going well." And I said, "When do you want me out there?" And he said, "Monday." And so I packed my bag. I didn't have a lot of odds and ends that I had to tidy up. I got my wife and my 3 sons, and here we came, and it was the greatest thing ever happened to me. The 111F was probably the most complicated airplane that the Air Force has ever bought, because you pull the wing back in flight, and you've got to know what you're doing. You can't have the wing back and be going slow through the air. You're going to kill yourself. And you can't have the wing all the way forward and be going like the devil through the air. You're going to pull a wing off. Right? You had to constantly redesign the airplane as you changed the mission that you were doing. But we took it from where it was probably on a scale of 70, a grade of 70. When I got here, we were at 99.995 within 5 weeks. And the wives, instead of being furious, because their husband's never around, they're saying, it's pretty nice that our reputation in town and everywhere else has gone from a C- to an A+, and that's pretty nice.
How many of the planes were there once you got
104.
them set up?
104.
And what your group commander?
Yes.
And could you name the squadrons that were in the group?
The 389th, the 390th, the 391st, and the 480th. But I treated them equally. I didn't have one that were cream. We did something you guys won't believe out here. TAC and SAC, we're both proud that you're in the Air Force with us. But how about loaning him your wallet? No way. I'm glad that you're in the same Air Force, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time helping you run your thing and not mine. Well, SAC had a bombing competition. And the way the SAC wings, and there was probably, I don't know how many wings there were, let's say that there were 14. Each of those 14 wings has got 4 squadrons. And you're the cream puff squadron here. You're the best. You get to do all the stuff that's really high reward and stuff like that. And you've got 4 crews that primarily are keyed toward being prepared to go and run the SAC bomb comp representing your wing tomorrow, next week, or 2 weeks from now, or a month, or what. I mean, it was a focus. Everything up there, the way that you press your pants is kind of a focus toward the SAC bomb comp. Well, you also are stacking the deck to where, even though you're going to let TAC come to it, you're sure going to have the mission to something that they can't, find the toilet in even. We got invited to the SAC bomb comp. Russ Doherty was a 4-star, dear friend of mine. He's the guy that hired me for the Pentagon before I came out here. And anyway, he said, if you guys got anything in commission, maybe you'd want to come up and run against the targets in there. On the day that we go up and run the thing, there's 14 different flights of aircraft that go across this thing here. They drop bombs here on these targets, all the same targets. And there's radar that judges how accurate they were and everything else. Well, SAC is sure going to have it stacked to where TAC won't even be able to find the state. And we ate them. We were the number 1 and the number 2 airplane in the SAC bomb comp. And we got invited down to receive the trophy down at Barksdale. And I was not going to go. I was going to just have our 2 crews go, which was a major and 3 captains. And SAC said, no, we think Colonel Walborn should come down also. And I went down there, and Russ Doherty played to me. And he played to me from the point of view of, it certainly was not a cream puff job that Soapy went to out there. It was a very tough job of expanding the mission tasking of the 111F. And he did it so well that it not only did his job better than we expected, but he also did ours, because they had 4 F-111 wings. They had 16 F-111 squadrons. SAC did. They call them FB-111s. But we came out and won that and did it all. If you've got nothing else out of what I've said, I'm the luckiest SOB that you've ever heard of. And it's still that same way.
Now, did you retire from Mountain Home? Is that the last final destination you had?
Let me stop and think, and where in the hell I did do that from. I came back from Germany to, I was chief of the employment department at the Air War College, which is, it's really a great job. Chief of the employment for the whole damned Air Force. And a lot of things that happened in my personal life. With my wife had fallen off the boat, and if you and I are married, you can expect A pluses, and you can expect my conduct to be A plus plus plus, and you can wind your watch by the fact that I'm going to expect nothing less in conduct from you. And if you fall off the boat, there's going to have to get somebody to get you out of the water. So I got a divorce coming out of Montgomery, and I think she thought that, he's really going to have his hands full, because I'll have the kids and he'll have nothing unless he puts up with me. And Jack said, Mom, it doesn't work like that. Jack was 9, and he said, I'm going with Pop. And the boys came with me out here, and everything just turned to gold.
Now, is that when you're at Mountain Home?
Well, I'd been there before on active duty. I'm off active duty now. I retired out of Montgomery. But it's really kind of funny how I got here. I've got a lot of things up in the air that I'm not having an 8-year-old make decisions on our future from. So I retired this morning, and they had 4 stars that came in there. There's no 4 stars normally are assigned at Montgomery, Alabama, at Maxwell. But 4 that knew me pretty well had come down there. I think there was 31 general officers that came to my retirement. So I've got here's your paper, so. And I've got this in my hand. I went out and jumped in my car, and Jack it's his last day of 2nd grade, his last day. So I've got my papers, and I've got all our bags packed from the night before I went out and picked him up. And I said, well, honey, we're no longer in the Air Force. I'm going to take you up, and I'm going to leave you with your mom for a week or 10 days to spend a little time with her. And then I'm going to go out and look, I've got several jobs that I've been offered, and but I don't have a house. And I'm nervous. I'm not comfortable with any of the jobs because I'm Jack's mom and his dad. One of the jobs that you'd say, Sophie, what a great job. That's like being president or emperor. I was given the task of running a stock brokerage office that had 14 brokers in it in Spokane. Let me get this straight. You and Jack are going to live in Spokane, and you're going to coach baseball. You're going to coach Jack. You're going to be his mom, and you're going to be his dad, and you're going to run an office with 14 brokers in it. How am I going to do that? What if Jack's going to school over here and my office is over here, and we live in the middle? How am I going to run around and do that and do a very good job of anything? So I picked Jack up and I said, honey, I'm going to take you up and drop you off with your mom and go out and look at some things out there, a house and jobs and stuff like that, to decide where we live. And Jack is 8. And he said, Pop, we're going to live in Mountain Home, Idaho. And he had been 2 when we got here. He had been 3 when we left, and he hadn't been back since he was 3. And this is 5 years later. Dad, we're going to live in Mountain Home, Idaho. And I thought that was pretty remarkable. And I came out to show you how smart I am, though, at planning. Let me tell you how I bought my house. There was a guy, and I'll hopefully be able to think of his name before I leave here. But anyway, they had been very nice to me, and I checked in out on the base at the BOQ, and I went over to the club, and one of my favorite people was a young captain when I'd been here. He's a major now, and we had dinner together, and I had John Berman Solo and Bob Reed, 2 of the big guns from town, and I had breakfast with him the next morning, and Bill Sanders was another old head that had been very good to me, and he couldn't go to breakfast with us. He said, but you've got to come by and see me before you leave. Well, I've got this job up in Spokane. I haven't been up there. I haven't looked at it. Don't have a house or anything else. And I said, where are Ross and Helen now? And he doesn't answer. Bill doesn't. He dials a phone and hands it to me. And Helen Clark picks it up. And she and Ross, her husband, had been really nice to me when I'd been here before. And I said, honey, I'm on my way to Spokane. And she said, you've got to come by and see me on your way out of town. And I went out and rang the door to my house, 570 East 13th North. And where's Ross at? Honey, he's at the Mayo Clinic. We just got off the phone, and he found out he's at Rochester, Minnesota. He was just told that he's got Parkinson's disease. And we have one child, and who is an attorney that lives by Columbia High School up in Boise. And we just got off the phone. We decided we're moving up there, and we're moving right now. As much as Ross thinks of you, you could steal the house. He's a good businessman, so am I. We're both pretty smart on what's possible and what's not. And I went back out to base, checked into my room, called it the Mayo Clinic, made him an offer, he took it, and I'm here. That's all of the research that I did on my damned house. I looked at it, but not with any fine lens or anything like that. But he came out here, I bought the house, he went to Boise, he died, she died, and the son, that's the attorney, his partner in the business is one of my very dearest friends out here now. I haven't seen the Clarks, any of them, since then. But can you imagine buying a house with that little consideration? But the decisions that I have made that have been pretty eye-watering decisions have come without a great deal of forethought.
So you've settled down and you're in Mountain Home, Idaho.
I came out here, bought the house. Within about 10 days, I've got all my furniture, which I just put into storage down at Maxwell. I've got that thing sticking. Well, when I've got this house right today. No furniture, no nothing, no. I'm not going to have it for 10 days. And the Clarks left me with some stuff they were going to throw out, cooking stuff. So when Jack got out here a couple of days later, we have nothing in the way of furniture in the house. So we go out here on the Air Base Road, that big fancy furniture store on the right. I forgot what it's called now. I bought a bed, and we said, come put the bed in the basement. And Jack gets out here, and he and I, the only piece of furniture we got in the house is a bed. So he and I are sleeping together down there. And I don't have a job. I don't have anything that's nagging on my time. And Jack and I are both pretty stupid. We're both good hunters and fishermen, but we've never been trout fishing in our lives. So, but I have a station wagon that's got all my fishing stuff in it. So we went up to Baumgartner's. Do you all know where that is? It's up near Featherville. And we went up to Baumgartner's, and I got his rod out and put a couple of hooks on it and 3 salmon eggs. And I said, now, honey, throw it across nice and gently, because you'll throw the eggs off. And throw it nice and gently over toward the other bank. And when it hits, don't set the bail. Just let it go. And it went down. We're up here, and the river's going in this direction. He throws it, it lands, and it goes down here. I said, okay, set the bail. He'd set the bail. And just like that, he's got a trout on it. And we were allowed 8 a day. And so I took it off, and I made a fish pond, in the sand at the side of the little creek there. And we're allowed to have 16 trout in our thing. Jack caught all 16 of them. Yeah. And we put them in a thing and went down to our house, and now we've got 16 trout. And we did have something else. We have got 2 refrigerators and 2 freezers, plus a bed. That they didn't take these things out. In fact, I've still got them. And anyway, we did the same thing tomorrow. Same thing. 16 really nice trout. And it took us about 10 days or 2 weeks to get our stuff up to open the house. And by then, Jack has got these freezers completely chock full of the most beautiful trout you could imagine. And that's the way we started. And Jack lives, like I say, 6 blocks from me. See, here's the office right here. And here is my house right here, and here's Jack's house. And he comes by and sees me every day. His kids come by and see me just about all the time. But I am on this trap line still 30 years later, and it still works really well. And I came up today, and I've got an incredibly bright 8-year-old aircraft aviation expert. Jack's out here. He is so damn smart, it's just unreal. I mean, when it comes to stuff like this. But you say, Sophie, how can anybody possibly be that lucky? I've got to get screwed and by 2 banks and and buying a house, well, I'll give you $80,000 for it. And he said, what kind of payments you want? I said, I'll write you a check. And so I have lived in there ever since. I've had about 6 different wonderful neighbors that have lived next door. I've got a big house. I've got 5,600 square feet. I live by myself in it. And Jack lived with me for a while, and but I've lived by myself. You can pretty well rattle around in it. But what a blessing.
Sounds like you've had a very, very full life. And one thing we did not bring up is the medals and special awards that you won through your career, and I'd like you to tell the folks exactly what you received.
I have been not afraid of combat. I hate to say looking forward to combat and enjoying combat, but the way that I lived my 2 combat tours was a very, very neat thing. I was in the 366th Fighter Wing for 1 year. I had 3 wonderful jobs in it as a major lieutenant colonel. In order to keep from having to go to the Pentagon, I flew a second tour. And in that one, that's when I owned all of the stuff below the fork of the Mekong. Wonderful job. There was no Americans down there except advisors. We didn't have a mess hall or a hospital or doctors or anything like that. We ate with the Vietnamese, and if the Vietnamese were having a function, we went into town to a Vietnamese restaurant and ate. It was pretty primitive. I was just very blessed that things always worked that well for me.
I'm still waiting.
Huh?
I want to know what awards you won. I want the folks to know.
I won the Silver Star in Vietnam, flying the F-4 out of Cameron. We had a troop of special forces that were pinned down on an island in the lower fork of the Mekong. They can't move. We can't extract them, and we can't get them out. And it's the middle of the night. And I led the flight of 4. And we were just miraculous. We broke the back of them. We got some Army helicopters that came in there to extract the people, and the folks on the ground were crying that they were, how can we possibly have avoided all that? That was what I got the Silver Star for. The bombing was just incredible. I couldn't have done any better if it had been broad daylight and there's nobody shooting at us. And this was at night, and the rain and everything else, and everything we did turned to gold. There were 9 other missions that I got the Distinguished for Flying Cross for. It was kind of I'm a jock. You can say I played professional baseball as a pitcher. You can say I played professional football, although I honestly didn't. I was the All-Air Force safety man and punter and kick returner in 1951, when we had all of the young college and professional All-Americans in the United States were in some kind of a reserve outfit, because it was a way you keep from being drafted, join a reserve. Well, they never dreamed that we were going to call all the Guard and Reserve things active duty. But we had probably 10 teams in the American military football thing in the States that would have not been humiliated with the National Football League or Notre Dame. And I played in all of those things. And like I say, I enjoyed combat, and I didn't avoid it, and I'm very lucky. If you've got nothing else from talking to me, it's that I'm a lucky son of a gun. And I flew enough missions in a very, 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 very high threat environment, a high risk environment, and accomplished a lot that other people had tried to avoid. That I won the Distinguished Flying Cross 9 times for that. And when I was getting ready to leave, the Viet Cong started the Tet Offensive, and the mud just hit the fan all over Vietnam. We were in so far over their head because their level of activity had gone up 300%. And we broke their back in 5 weeks. And my last day in the country, I won the Vietnamese Medal of Honor that was presented to me by General Min. And there's one of the pictures that's in there is him doing that. And from there, I was 8 days late in meeting my DEROS, my date of return from overseas. So I'm late in getting back, but if the war is going on and I'm dumb enough to fight it, they're smart enough to extend my DEROS. And I came on back and went to Germany and got rewarded and blessed far more than I ever deserved. But those are the big things: a Vietnamese Medal of Honor, 9 Distinguished Flying Crosses, and a Silver Star.